Okay, so the event is now being recorded. All right, so today we have an exciting event. It's the New Horizons Deaf Opportunity for Deaf Artists. So today, before we get started, I wanted to also acknowledge that we are on treaty land. So we're gathered here today on Treaty 1 land, the historic homeland of the Anishinaabe, Cree, the OG Cree, the Dene peoples, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation. Okay, so I'll just get started here. So I'd like to introduce all the artists for today's event. So please, if you are an artist, can you please turn your camera on? All right, so give a warm welcome here to our panel or artists. And pretty soon we will be seeing examples of all of these people's art, as well as some history that they'll share with you in their videos. And so this is just a brief introduction so that everybody can see your lovely faces, and I will just ask you to turn off your videos once again. Okay, so we'll get started now with our videos.
Number 1. Who are you? And what do you do? My name is Cheryl Brozite. This is my sign name, and I'm a photographer. Number 2. Tell us about your artist journey. Why did you start this journey, and when did it begin? What is your background? I grew up here in Winnipeg. Virtually all of my family are deaf, and most of my family are fluent in American Sign Language. For my immediate family, both my parents are deaf, my siblings are non-deaf, but we all communicate fluently using American Sign Language. In my experience growing up, I have encountered countless barriers. Now, through my photography, I strive to share the deaf perspective through the lens of my camera, so that those in mainstream society can understand the deaf world that I belong to. I strive to share this experience so that the mainstream world, the non-deaf world, can take a look into the deaf world and understand deaf people. I take photos and create visual art so that I can achieve this purpose. I once visited the Indiana School for the Deaf's art department. I became enthralled with a particular painting of a young boy with the palm of his hand raised with an illustration drawn on his palm. This inspired me to create my own photo series in which I feature various art and illustrations centered around the hand, expressing art through the hands. To achieve this, I paint various images on my hand and photograph them. This speaks to how much I value my hands. My hands are my main tool and mode of communication. My most recent addition to the series features a painting of the COVID-19 virus on the palm of my hand. I did this to illustrate my experience with the pandemic when it was first announced in March. When the pandemic was first announced, there was a lot of new information. However, none of this new information was accessible in ASL. There was no language equivalency for the deaf community regarding all of this new information. We were often the last to know what was going on. Although I tuned into the updates, there were no sign language interpreters provided. Finally, much later on, interpreters were included, but still not equal to spoken language. Often the live updates did not have interpreters, but rather the updates would be uploaded online with interpretation later on in the evening. This meant that I wasn't able to access crucial information until later on rather than when it was announced. I really felt that sign language was not valued equally to spoken language, which is what I wanted to express through my photography. I was truly disappointed with how that situation unfolded and experienced it as a major barrier. Number 3. Professionally, what is your goal? My goals include continuing my photography, specifically highlighting deaf culture and our language, ASL. I intend to continue in this pursuit. I also want to begin selling prints of my work. Additionally, in the future, I'd like to grow my family photography business. This I intend to do much later in the future as I currently work otherwise. I look forward to picking that up in the future.
Okay, so I'd like to invite Cheryl to join us here. Could you turn your camera on? And then I will also ask Janelle to come on as well. Great. Okay, does anyone in the audience want to ask a question to Cheryl? If you do, click on the participant button and you'll see a little button also to click that says raise hand. And then I can invite you on to ask your question to Cheryl.
Would you like me to ask a question while we wait, Evan? Hi, Cheryl. I wonder, what kind of paint do you use to create the image on your hands?
I use acrylic paint. So it's cheap paint that you can, it's easy to wash off, that type of thing.
Great.
And any questions from the audience? Please don't be shy. Go ahead. Janelle, do you want to go with the next question?
Sure. How do you achieve that black background with yourself and your hands so well lit up?
So I do have a sheet that I use as a background, and it's completely black. And so I have a timber camera as well. So I set the focus and make sure that it's focused on the hand, because I don't want, myself to be perfectly in focus. Rather, the hand is the focus of the shot. And then I use the timber. It probably takes about 25 shots to get it right, because I have to, either move backwards or forwards, or, maybe I've moved too far back and it's not clear. So I have to really get in the right position to get that field of view correct. Okay, next question, Janelle.
Actually, I see there's one in the chat. Catherine asks, hello, how do you paint yourself?
So I am right-handed. So I'm not left-handed. I use my right hand to do the painting on my hand. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to do it the other way around. I wouldn't be very good with that. So I always paint my left hand, obviously because I'm right-handed, and that's the way that I approach it. But I do paint it myself. Okay, I do see one question here. And the question is, what is the first thing that you photographed that you became known for? The first thing that I became known for. So I wouldn't say, I think I do it as a hobby. I enjoy it. I took a photography class with a deaf group of people. And then I also took the ABYC, the Art of Managing Your Own Career, a course that they offer. And so from then on, you know, I was able to start my own website, my social media, Facebook, that type of thing, and really take it on from there. And that's where I kind of got started with my photography. Great. One more question here. We have about 5 minutes for question and answer for each artist. A question from Judita. What advice would you give to people who want to become professional photographers? Well, I think what's really important is that you follow your passion. If you have a want to do something, do it, get involved, learn on your own, do research on the internet, ask around in your community, you know, just be assertive in your learning and you will succeed. Okay, thank you so much, Cheryl. So we'll get you to turn your camera off and we'll watch the video for the next artist.
Number 1. Who are you? And what do you do?
I'm Alice and I'm a printmaker. I mostly work with type combined with printmaking and other forms of art.
Number 2. Tell us about your artist journey. Why did you start this journey and when did it begin? What is your background?
My art journey began when I became partly deafened at an early age. Communication is scrambled for me. I listen and I lip read, and I guess as long as I have context. How I interpret spoken language is in my art. ASL and deaf culture were part of my early life when I was in school for the deaf in Ontario. I lost much of that when we moved to Winnipeg. When I was mainstreamed, I began to realize I was missing parts of conversation. My work reflects my love of wildlife in camouflage. First you see the image, then you see the letters, and then you see the words. As a child, I loved the shape of letters. I was exposed to topography as a young teen. My father moved into a building to start a business and he found a cabinet full of wood type. These were rescued by my mother. After 2 bachelor's degrees in science from the University of Manitoba, I, in my 40s, graduated in graphic design at Red River College. There I learned the history of wood type. I discovered that they were made in the 1800s. And that led me to explore type as an art form. Also, I took the program Making Our Mark at Martha Street Studio. It was a life changer. I expanded and involved in my printmaking skills, and it has opened up new possibilities in my art journey.
Number 3. Professionally, what is your goal?
My goals are to take an art residency in another country, to do more solo shows with Gallery Lacrosse and more group shows across Canada. And best of all, my goal is to have a solo show with Martha Street Studio. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so I'd like to invite Alice and any of our audience members. You've seen her wonderful art and we'd like to go ahead with your questions. So go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. And in the meantime, we will start with a question from Janelle.
Hi, Alice. It seems you started your professional art career later on in life. What made you make this brave switch?
My parents had expectations of me to be a scientist, where I really wanted to take fine arts. And I didn't want to disappoint them, so I took both of my science degrees. And ultimately, after working a year and a half in a lab, I decided it wasn't for me. And I ended up working as an office manager for my husband's business. And even though it was okay, it just wasn't my thing. And I really, really wanted to take graphic design. It was my goal in high school. And at the time, Red River College did not have a very good program at the time. And my parents could not afford to send me to Sheridan College in Ontario. So it got really delayed, and I went to Red River College after my kid entered into elementary school, and I decided to take the leap then.
Very nice. Another question from Cheryl here. Cheryl's asking, what type of material do you use in your art?
What kind of materials?
Yes,
when I'm
materials.
printmaking with type, I use an ink for printmaking, and it's oil-based. When I'm printing for my wood type blocks, I use a watercolor speedball ink. And I've been known to mix the two. Like sometimes I've done some printing, and then I would add a bit of watercolor to it, but not very often. So I use a variety of materials.
Very cool. We've got another question here from Judita. And Judita asks, do you have a typography group in Canada? Do those exist in Canada? If so, how would you join something like that?
Tell you the truth, I never really searched for one. I just sort of winged it on my own. I know there's a Colograph group on Facebook which does printmaking when you carve from mat board, which I do sometimes in my work. I don't know. I will have to look.
Great. Janelle, do we have another question for Alice?
Yes, Alice, the subject of most of your artwork is animals and wildlife. Is there a particular animal that you enjoy most capturing?
I really like shorebirds, like pipers and herons and that kind of thing. For animals, I haven't done too many, but I fell in love with sheep. I fell in love with them when I went to Ireland about 3 years ago, and I was traveling around for about 3 months, which was a fantastic journey. Now at the current moment, my preference for an animal is lambs, They're kind of between the sweet lamb and the grown-up, you know, the naughty teenagers. That's my favorite age for the lambs.
Very nice. I have a last question here before we wrap up and move on to the next video. And this is from Terry. Terry asks, you mentioned that you've gone to other countries to study. Where in the world would you like to go the most?
Actually, I would like to go back to Ireland and do that. But somewhere in Europe, Greece, Spain, Italy, you know, one of those countries, France maybe.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Alice. Thanks for the questions too from the audience. So we'll turn our cameras off and we'll move on to the next video.
Number 1. Who are you? And what do you do? Hi, my name is Misty Gray Eyes. I grew up in British Columbia, where I was exposed to many different forms of art as a child. I moved here to Manitoba in 2014, and I sell custom artwork throughout the city of Winnipeg. Number 2. Tell us about your artist journey. Why did you start this journey, and when did it begin? What is your background? I am fully Indigenous. I lost my hearing around the age of 3 due to a stroke. I did not know any sign language whatsoever, nor did I speak English. At that time, art was my communication. I have experienced many struggles, including health issues, spiritual difficulty, depression. Luckily, I was found by the Jehovah's Witness community, and through spiritual study, I was able to find my way out of darkness and into light. Number 3. Professionally, what is your goal? When I was young, I always dreamed of becoming an artist. Now I continue to make art, and I hope to own my own business and perhaps become a well-known artist one day.
So I'd like to, well, actually, unfortunately, Misty is not here at the moment, unfortunately. So we'll just move on to our next artist, if that's okay with everyone. And so we'll go back and watch the next video.
Number 1. Who are you? And what do you do?
My name is Piyush, and I'm an interdisciplinary artist working with painting, printmaking, and sculpture. I'm interested in the way that visual images can work to, or not work to communicate, and I'm interested in a way of creating works that bring in texture and tactile experience.
Number 2. Tell us about your artist journey. Why did you start this journey, and when did it begin? What is your background?
So growing up, I was interested in making little sketches and crafts whenever I could, and I have a very vivid memory of copying, tracing book covers, and I decided that I wanted to be able to do that myself. And so eventually I went to the University of Manitoba, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in 2016. And so I started developing this way of working that I was trying to capture this fluid quality of sound to spill over and be a little bit in flux. And I made a series called Lamp Post Sun that really explored that. And after that, I was interested in works that you could touch and interact with, and I developed a way of working that became about texture and mixed media and bring in all of these different influences into the works. And right now I'm working on this series called Foreplay that is really about engaging with the work in a very intimate, tactile, and texture-based way.
Number 3. Professionally, what is your goal?
So I've been self-employed for the past year, and it's been amazing. I've been able to do a lot of my own work, and I've worked on some amazing projects, including a mural that I just finished this past weekend with synonym art, and this amazing artist called Peter Thomas. It's awesome. I'm having a lot of fun, and my goals for the next few years are to get a master's whenever I can actually go back to classes in person, and after that I'm going to be working towards gallery representation, and hopefully it'll work. But honestly, right now I just want to make some cool stuff and work with some amazing people.
Okay, I'd like to welcome Bram. Hello. So any questions from the audience? Hi, Bram. Got one question here, just to clarify. Bram, do you identify as hard of hearing or hearing? Just wondering.
I'm hard of hearing, so lowercase f.
Thank you, Bram. Janelle, do you want to go ahead with another question?
Yeah, Bram, I was lucky enough to see the closing in person. For those who haven't seen it, it's actually quite a large piece. It's almost as tall as I am. Why did you choose to make it so large, and does scale impact your work at all?
You got a hard question, because I can't really say why I want to work big, but it's nice to work big and make some really large scale pieces, because working at a large size, especially with the paper mache that I use, it's a very different, it becomes something very different, and it's much more immersive. There's a lot more that you can see just from working at a bigger scale in terms of like the detail that I can put in but also the visual impact of working big when you see it in person. I think it's a very interesting way of working. So I wanted to explore how I guess size would impact the work too.
That's very cool. And next question here, we have a question from Terry. Terry asked, do you feel connected to your art with your hearing loss? And how does that connect to your self-expression?
I think the way that it is part of my work is that it is part of the experiences that I'm drawing on. And so there's a very specific way that I experience sound, which is kind of like very clear and very not clear at the same time. And so that way of thinking is kind of how is something that shapes the way I think about my work and how I think about visual imagery. So it's definitely something, it influences the way that I approach image making and my work. And I think that's my answer.
Awesome. Next question here from Alice. So Alice asks, I know that you invite people to touch your work and be intimate with your work in that way. But now, how do you avoid wear and tear on your artwork in that way? And then how do you keep it clean and sanitized in the this day and age of COVID-19?
So to answer the first part, I don't make it durable at all, because I'm working with paper mache. It's paper that's been torn up and just put together with glue. I'm using plaster that's already broken about 5 times in the making of the piece. It's a very fragile medium in the first place, so I don't actually care that much about preserving or keeping it in pristine condition, because the way I think about those touchable works are that one's just out and in a gallery or in any kind of place where people can actually touch and interact with it. That interaction is just as important to the piece as what I've done with it. So all of the dirt and the grime that might build up, I think that's something that is going to become part of the work, and that's what I want. So I don't bother preserving or doing anything at all. But to the other part, especially with COVID, unfortunately no one can touch anything, because we've had to just close everything. So I'm hoping that in the next, hopefully year, you might actually be able to touch things again in person, and then you'll be able to experience them.
Wonderful. One more question maybe from Janelle. You can go ahead.
Sure. How thick is your sculpture, and why do you use gouache paint rather than, say, acrylic?
So it depends. For the closing, the one that you've seen, it's not quite that thick. It's maybe an inch thick. But there's also 2 different levels of depth to the piece. So there's like a very subtle bas relief feature, which is a sculpture sculptural element, but it's very, very low depth. As far as the paint that I use, it's mostly personal preference. The paint that I use has a very matte finish, so it doesn't reflect light, it's not shiny, and I think it just looks better on the paper mache that I'm using. It also has a nice little property where if it's touched, then it kind of bears the marks where it's touched, so it kind of gets bruised almost. So I wanted to use that.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Bram. So we're up to our 5 minutes, so we'll move on to the next artist. But thank you so much for your answers, and thanks to the audience for the questions.
Number 1. Who are you? And what do you do? Hello, my name is Ivan Kovelovich. I am Ukrainian, and I moved to Canada in 2013. I've been here in Winnipeg for the last 7 years. Number 2. Tell us about your artist journey. Why did you start this journey, and when did it begin? What is your background? I first became interested in art at age 9. I love the many different colors and different forms of art. My interest has remained for years, now at age 37. I love different elements of nature, such as trees, flowers, water, etc. Also people's faces, many different things. I'm interested in many different kinds of imagery. After a 4-year college program, I was able to find a job and worked professionally for 10 years. I picked up many different skills and continued art as a hobby at home as well. I also work in the film industry, directing various projects. I work to translate real-world color into film. I love the work I do, working with the deaf community and that creative process. I also have a fascination with sign language and like to incorporate it in my work. Both visual art and filmmaking are my passions. Number 3. Professionally, what is your goal? My goals include working with the deaf community, teaching art, and supporting deaf people artistically. In film, my goal is to employ people who use sign language and show them how fun the industry is. I think something that is important is accessing government grants to support people to work in the arts. Many deaf people are very isolated, and I'd like to support those people and expose them to the arts. For those who are interested, I would like to support them. We have to make a bit of a plan in regard to art if people are wanting to get involved. The important thing is to access government grants so that they can pursue the film industry as well as the arts. I think both are important. However, if only a few people are interested, 1 or 2 people, a grant might not be approved. If 10, 15, 20 people are interested, then a grant might be approved so that people can get involved in film and learn different skills. Things like theater and sign language, many different things. getting a grant would be important, and the same would be true for art. If people want to get involved, then 1 or 2 people might not do it, but 10, 15, 20 people, maybe then a grant would be approved by the government. Both are true for both fields, art and film. If you're interested, I'll be waiting. Go ahead if you're interested. Thank you.
Janelle, if you have the first question.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, Ivan.
Hello.
How long did it take you to paint the ancient castle? It's beautiful.
Well, it is oil-based and is difficult for all the paints to really meld properly. And in my experience, you know, because being in the deaf world, I have tried to really be able to express myself through my art. In a world of art, it's been very isolating, not many deaf artists. And it is, I find it difficult sometimes to portray live, like people's faces and different florals. For many years, I've tried to get some experience. I tried to get involved in that sphere of art. I did take 4 years of my degree and was able to join and get some experience from other more experienced artists and learn from their experience. Once I joined them, at being a deaf person, I had a different culture and different experience for them, but I tried to really show the live, you know, features of nature, of art, of the flowers and everything. And I was able to join some classes, and they were able to give me some more techniques to vary my skills. And I've had a lot of mentorship. And I think that with oil-based, having that floral with the light capture, and you have different layers. There was like 10 different styles that I kind of tried to pick from and meld and have them all together. I think that once, you know, if you're out in the forest or out in nature, to have that kind of sense of alive nature, I wanted to be able to portray that in my art. And just to have that idea of having 10 different pictures of, with the color, the light, the nature, I tried to be able to create that. And so I picked different elements from all those things to perfect and include that in the art. And, you know, for the last 10 years, I've been trying to take elements from, you know, sculpture, art, even different unconventional works to try to use that in my art as well. And for example, using sculpture, I've been trying to continue to practice and work towards it. And so for the last 10 years, you know, sometimes it's gotten easier. And so I have been able to do it in a shorter amount of time for a few days. But it's really, I have to say thank you to the mentors I've had. And once I moved here in 2013 in Canada, I was able to look for, wasn't able to find an opportunity for work. And I was trying to see what sort of opportunities I could have that I had in the Ukraine. And I know that art is very close to my heart. And oh, sorry. And Evan is just saying, I'm just going to clarify the question. In terms of that particular painting, how many hours did it for that particular painting? I would say with oil base, if it's a larger, I mean, I guess it depends on the size of it, but I would say from 80, Yeah, 100 by 80, I would say to paint it might take 2 weeks. If it was like a 50 by 70 piece, maybe 3 or 4 days. It's a lot quicker, but it depends on the scale. If it was a picture of nature, it might be faster, maybe take 3 days. If it was maybe a boat on water, something of that nautical thing, then it might take me a little bit longer. If there are people's faces involved, then it is longer still, because it really depends on the scene that you're painting and what the focus is. Thank you very much, Evan is saying. Sorry, that is our 5 minutes. So I think we're actually, oh shoot. I know it's a very exciting topic, but I apologize. I know we only have 5 minutes for each of the artists, but we're going to move on to the next artist. So thank you very much, Ivan and Janelle, for your question. I appreciate
Number 1. Who are you? And what do you do? My name is Michael Locks, and this is my sign name. I am an artist interested in multiple different mediums. Number 2. Tell us about your artist journey. Why did you start this journey, and when did it begin? What is your background? I come from a family with a strong art background. Since I was a young child into my high school years, my family's dream was for me to attend Sheridan College in Oakville, which had an esteemed art program. Unfortunately, at that time, I had no access to sign language interpreters in order to attend. I decided to pursue other things, but art remained my hobby for many years. Recently, someone came across my art on Facebook, and that's how I became involved in this project. I was first inspired to create art by the many comics I read and was fascinated with. My mom took note of my interest and encouraged me to be as creative as I could. Weekly, I focused my mornings solely on creating art. I continued for many years, and my mom persisted that I pursue art. It's still something that I deeply enjoy doing. I consider creating art to be the best way to relieve stress. Number 3. Professionally, what is your goal? Growing up, my goal was to have my art be instantly recognizable. I also wanted to pursue performance art as well. Still now, at age 50, I have not yet given up on those dreams. Imagine that.
sorry, there were some technical difficulties, and Evan was just making sure they had the video stopped at the right time. And now we will invite Michael to join us. Sorry about that. I was having some issues coordinating all this, and we kind of moved a bit too far. So my bad. All right, so if there are any questions from the participants for Michael? From Alice. Okay, you mentioned enjoying performance art. Yes. Have you thought about combining both drawing and performance art? Well, I do have a strong history in my family of being involved with art. We have a strong family and entertainment, arts and entertainment. So between the two of them, I really enjoyed both. Live performance art, I've always been interested in that. And when I watched Ivan's, I know that Ivan and we were involved in a performance. It's not quite finished, but it was been put on hold, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. And so I've gone back to some of my art, visual art, and so I've got papers all over the place in regards to other projects, and I've gotten a lot of ideas from these things to kind of build on what I want to draw moving forward. But some of those pieces I'll have to show you later. And the other question from Leo. Ivan, can you see? Or Michael, can you see me? Does any of the drawing relate to you, or are they ideas? Can you give me a little bit more about what you mean by that? So your recent art, that piece, do you feel connected to it? Is it in relation to yourself, or is it more of an idea that you've gotten from elsewhere outside of you? So that piece was in 1994. At that time, I was just having my kid, my first child, and I also had some time to do some art in my somewhat spare time. And I take ideas from all over the place. And that particular piece had different emotions that wanted to be portrayed, not just one. I've got lots of different pieces, but that's one example. Another question from Judita. I'm curious if there's a reason for having Superman or superheroes frequently in your artwork, and what that reason is. Well, I will say that my family, I am deaf and my family is non-deaf. That's what he said. I watched a lot of TV growing up in the 1960s. Lots of black and white shows, lots of and the artwork that I saw from those, like even this shirt, for example, my favorite is Superman, and as you can see in the background, I have a poster of Superman as well, Superman versus Batman, and I took a lot of my ideas from that experience and comics that I collected. I have a big comic collection and lots of different superhero toys and whatnot, and so a lot of my art has been with that impact, and I tried to include sign language and this pandemic, and so there's lots of different ideas that I incorporate into my art. I did notice that shirt. I noticed you were wearing that Superman shirt there. Other questions? Oh yeah, so Janelle, if you have another question for Michael?
Yeah, I do. Have you ever considered creating your own deaf superhero and stories about the deaf superhero?
Oh, I will. I definitely will. I've certainly thought about it. Not right now. I'm working with a group with different themes, but how to figure out that first, I have to decide what the theme of it is going to be first, and then, you know, I have 8 different images that I can think of first, and then once I have that, so I could kind of apply that to the next piece. I definitely have thought about a deaf superhero, many different ones, but I haven't put them out there until it's all ready. And I mean, I started drawing when I was quite young, and you know, between life and work and whatnot, and time is of the essence sometimes. So right now, because of the pandemic, I've actually had a lot of time to be able to focus on my work and my artwork. And so I have been not as busy with life, but I have had the opportunity to do really development. And if the pandemic was to pass, I will definitely be continuing my artwork as I have in the last few months. I think we have time for one more, Evan. So if there's any from the audience, or one from Janelle.
Sure, I have one. I know you like to draw superheroes and comics. Do you have one in particular that's your favorite that you draw all the time?
Well, obviously, by the shirt I'm wearing, you can tell that I love Superman. It is one of my favorites. And I think the reason is, maybe it is with my dream. What if once, you know, if it could happen, Superman could come back and resolve this whole pandemic, that would be a dream of mine for sure. That would be great.
You could just use his breath and blow it away.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. All right. Thank you very much, Michael, and for all your questions and responses. I appreciate it. So we'll move on to the next artist. Thank you. No problem.
Number 1. Who are you? And what do you do? Hi, my name is Leonardo. I go by Leo for short. This is my sign name. I'm a photographer, and I have worked with Manitoba Cultural Society of the Deaf, Deaf Arts Manitoba, the Royal Winnipeg Ballet. I also do wedding photography, wildlife photography, and other creative shoots. Number 2. Tell us about your artist journey. Why did you start this journey, and when did it begin? What is your background? I was born in Puerto Rico, and I moved to Canada when I was young. As a child, I loved reading books, magazines, comics, all of which had one thing in common: illustrations. These illustrations always told a story. These stories are what I became fascinated with. The first camera I had was a Canon SX40 PowerShot. I brought this camera with me on my travels through Texas, taking photos of my journey and casually storing them away on my laptop, eventually returning home. Years later, my 3 children managed to find these old photos, projecting them onto the TV. They gleefully looked through the slideshow of all of these photographs, and I was inspired to brand my photos JCI Photography, the initials of all 3 kids. Later on, as my photography skills developed, I decided to start my own business. Number 3. Professionally, what is your goal? My goal is to become an international photojournalist. I want to travel the world, visiting different countries to capture their wildlife, food, culture, style, something similar to what you might see in a National Geographic magazine.
Very smooth. Thank you for joining us, Leo. Any questions for Leo from the audience?
I have a question while we wait. How do you get so close to the wildlife and get that great shot without alerting them?
Well, I do use a zoom lens for that particular photo. So you are able to get a lot closer to the subject using that. And I try to make sure that I can just check with the zookeeper to see what time they're feeding the animals, so that I can when they're out and about, and I can get closer to them. And sometimes, you know, if you see them kind of looking into the camera, it might be because there is some food coming, or the zookeeper is coming with some food, and so they're looking straight towards that zookeeper versus the camera. And while they're looking towards the food, I'm able to take those shots, and those are some of the best pictures that I've been able to do, as long as I've been able to communicate that with the grounds keepers. Great. Another question from Judita. Where can we view your artwork? Sorry, say that one more time, Evan. Where can we view your artwork? I do post a lot of my stuff on Instagram. I am currently developing a website. It's not quite ready, but it's still in development, and I have a portfolio that I want to have all of my work in: wildlife, food, culture, all of the different things that I've shot. I'm hoping to have posted on the website. There are some pieces. Yeah, I just want to make sure that before I start the website and have it posted for anybody, I want to have enough artwork so that it's ready to be showing. Sorry, and that sign you used, do you mind just spelling that out, that this sign that you're saying, what is that? Sorry, what's your Instagram handle? Thank you. It's outside the shutter. Cool. I look forward to checking that out. Another question from Terry. Terry is asking, what was the first animal you took a photo of that helped you realize that you could be a wildlife photographer? And what is your favorite animal to shoot? Well, I go to the zoo often. Anytime I need to take a load off, get some sort of mental health stress relief, I go. And right now with COVID, prior to COVID, obviously, could go more frequently. There was lots of a lot more traffic. I tried, but now that it's code red, you can't even go at all. But there was a lot better in the meantime when it was not as full of people. And wolves are quite active during the winter. For example, on Father's Day, that was the day that I caught that wolf, and he was just looking up to howl, and I just happened to catch a shot of him right at that point. It was just perfect timing, and it just happened to be Father's Day. So it was just quite a coincidence, and it was a great shot. It's one of my favorites. Oh, wow. It's a really amazing shot of the wolf. Yeah, and in terms of animal shots, I'm not sure how many times I could count how many shots I'd had.
Okay.
Janelle, if I can pass it on to you.
Absolutely. It seems that you're self-taught. How did you develop your photography skills, or did you take any photography courses?
Well, I did want to get involved in the photography group. Unfortunately, I was unable. It's very blurry for me. And I was late, so I would have to join the other group. So unfortunately, that didn't work out for me. And so I do learn a lot through YouTube. I watch a lot of videos. It is very frustrating at times. TikTok, Instagram, I try to see different social media platforms just to see what I can learn from different people and their work. And I find that YouTube is really the best. Specifically from Blue Lightning on YouTube is very amazing. And I have taken, not that I take their ideas, but when I see something, I try to make it my own and see how I could take that and have it be in my own style, something that would work with my sense of photography. And then I always try to go back and look at more stuff and see how I can further my skills. And often I learn a lot through YouTube. Awesome. Okay, and I think we have time for one more question if anybody from the audience wants to ask. Janelle, is maybe time for one more?
Sure. I'm curious, is there one photographer in particular that really inspires you, or just National Geographic in general?
I would say both, to be honest. One particular artist is Jordy Cultic. Amazing work. From New York. Sorry. They work from a Sony camera. I typically, or my equipment is Canon with various lenses, and the Sony is a little bit different in terms of their functionality. And in terms of National Geographic, the photographers there are just endless. So I love them all. They're incredible. Yeah. So I can't say I can't pick one, but I do love them all. That's very cool. Thank you very much, Leo, for sharing your responses. And I think we can go on to our final artist of the evening.
Number 1. Who are you? And what do you do? My name is Tina Wall. This is my sign name. I love many forms of art, but my favorite types are drawing and painting. Number 2. Tell us about your artist journey. Why did you start this journey, and when did it begin? What is your background? Growing up, I had no exposure to art whatsoever. When I moved to Canada, I took my first art class in elementary school. I immediately fell in love and I picked up artistic skills quickly. When I was young, I did not have great language skills in either English or ASL. However, I was able to express myself through art. Art was basically another language I used to communicate. Art truly helped me get through difficult times and challenges in my life. I took various art classes throughout elementary school to high school. My art skills were definitely my best skill compared to any other course. I had a high school teacher who recognized my talents and encouraged me to enroll in arts at the University of Manitoba. I had many positive influences encouraging me to go for it, so I thought, why not? I applied and was swiftly accepted. My time at U of M was immensely beneficial, and I was able to learn so much from my professors and the various art I was exposed to, attending museums and the like. I was able to find my own creative style, expressing from within. I was able to develop the use of meaningful metaphor and just deepen my passion to create. Number 3. Professionally, what is your goal? My goal is to complete my degree at the University of Manitoba. I'd also like to hold my own art show one day in the future.
So if we could move on to the questions for Tina.
Sure. Judita actually has the same question I do. What is the metaphor or meaning behind the artwork which is shown today with the ice melting on the heart?
When people look at art, when they're fans or the audience, whenever they take a look at my art, I want them to really think about what it means to them for themselves. I'm always really drawing for people, for them to kind of make that own decision. I don't want to tell them what it means, but the ice itself, it's like finding true love when you never thought you would, and trying to, when you do find that love, having your that ice melt, and when you fall in love. Okay. And I have another question from Crystal. If I could invite her to ask the question. Crystal? Hello, Tina. And so you moved to Canada. Where did you move from? It's actually a long story. I'm actually from Mexico, but also from the States. But the most recent move was from the US. Oh, wow. Very nice. I was just wondering. Thank you. Oh, thank you for asking.
So I have another question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So my question is, this piece is very surreal. Is that indicative of the rest of your artwork? Is it also surreal, or what subject matter do you like to work with?
I would say yes and no at the same time. It's a bit of a combination. So I like to show metaphor, and it could be dreamlike, it can be surreal, it can be real world. So it doesn't have to be. So I can incorporate both, but it's just any sort of expression or emotion that I'm feeling. I like to express it in my work. And Emma's saying, I think maybe we have time for a couple more questions, but if I could throw it out there to anybody who has a last couple questions. Janelle, how about you? If you have any more questions you want to add at this point?
Absolutely. I'm curious, do you ever incorporate your deaf experiences into your artwork at all?
She's saying not. You know, I would say yes and no, not really. I mean, I don't really focus on communication in my work. I grew up in a non-deaf family, and so I'm not communicating well. So in terms of art, I really just started to express myself that way versus communicating. And I'm saying, I think we have enough time. We've got a couple more questions. One from Terry. What is your favorite tool for art? Pencil is my favorite medium. I like to add colors with pastels, any sort of pastel paint to add a more visual and make it more colorful. That's my favorite. Sorry, you've already answered that question, pardon me. From Judita, pardon me. What was the application process like for the University of Manitoba Fine Arts program, and when did you go? What year did I go in? Is that what you said? I went in directly from high school. I believe that was in 2014. So I was there for 2 years nearly, and then I withdrew from the courses. And in terms of the application process, what did you have to do? Sorry, say that one more time. Yes, so your application process, was it an application or what have you? There was an application form, but because it was fine arts, I had to do my artist profile, or my portfolio, pardon me, from high school. And so I had met with one of the professors, laid out my artwork. She took a look at all my art and kind of was given a yay or nay whether or not I would be approved to be into the program. And the same professor that kind of reviewed my artwork, it was actually 2 years later, she had said that from the beginning to the end, she had said she noticed a great improvement within that 2-year span that I was there. So that was really neat for me to see too. Wow, so time has gone very quickly. So I want to thank you for all your questions and your participation today. And you can close down all your videos, and we'll just have the interpreter stay here, and I'll just wrap up the evening for this evening. So thank you all to all the artists who've come out and all the questions. This art project, I want to thank you so much to Canada Council of the Arts for that grant that was provided in order to fund this project. I think that it really was quite amazing, and thank you for all your hard work to all the artists who have been doing so much work. It was incredibly beautiful, and just I want to say very grateful for having you involved, and I hope we can support you further. And thank you again And to the membership as well, a big thank you, and to who came out, and a big thank you to the interpreters. So I think that is the end. And before we close, I should say, if anybody is interested in signing up to become a member of MCSD, you can go to our website. It's mcsd-dam.com. Click on membership and you can sign up to become a member of MCSD.